Hi guys, my name is Lireko and I want to help you through the first chapter of the One-to-One, which is God, a New Understanding. The leadership lesson that I want you to get in this section is that there are people that you will be ministering to who have various perceptions of who God is. So listen to what people are saying as you engage them. Ask them questions about who God is, their understanding of God. Listen to what they're saying so that you understand the different views in the room and you're able to well facilitate a journey from inaccurate understanding of who God is to the most biblically accurate understanding of who God is. So you may be dealing with people who come from different backgrounds, people who are at various stages of their spiritual journey, and so that's why it's important to engage and to ask questions. Some people may be newly saved. Some people may have just come to the idea or the acceptance of the reality of God. And for these people, it's always good to start right at the beginning and have an emphasis on the preeminence of God. Now, right at the beginning of this chapter deals with the creation story, and this really helps us to instill in people a faith and an understanding of the sovereignty of God. And so if you find that these are the people that you're dealing with, then I would suggest having a greater emphasis on this area. God was before the beginning. God created the world. The story of creation as is illustrated in Genesis, and really trying to get an understanding of where the people are journeying with you. It's always important to do that via asking questions. Some people will be in a different stage. So some people will have grown up with the understanding of an existence of God, that maybe God was just distant, and there's a lack of understanding of who God really is. So for these people, I would suggest focusing on the attributes of God. And this chapter has awesome attributes of God. So the love of God, the holiness of God, the mercy of God, the grace of God, and even God in the Trinity and understanding of relationship through how we see God, the Godhead relating. So I would suggest for that section having a greater focus on the attributes of God. Now I like to use illustrations. I think illustrations really help to land the discussion for people, and also just understanding that because of cultural backgrounds, different teachings, people coming from various churches, people looking at stuff on the internet, that really there are different understandings of who God is. And so if we can have a fruitful discussion, use illustrations around this area, it helps us to walk away being on the same page. So an example that I like to use about the holiness of God, for example, is I would typically talk about, well, if God walks into the room and he starts to talk to me and he tells me that I am Asian. Now that's a humorous example, and always gets people laughing, etc., but really drives the point home, because what would my reaction be if God told me that I'm Asian? Is I would go and I'd look at myself in the mirror, and then I would have a debate with God about the fact that I'm not Asian, and of course God would insist. But the idea that we're trying to drive home here is that at the end of the day, I have to align myself to what God is saying. And so regardless of what my circumstances are telling me, I have to align myself to the truths of God. And so if God is continuously telling me that He's chosen me and He's made me holy, then regardless of what my situation is, I have to believe that I'm holy and align myself to that thinking. We also struggle to believe in the love of God, and that's why we tend to distance ourselves from the love of God, and we believe that it's easier to believe that we are objects of the wrath of God than it is to believe that we are objects of the love of God. And so I would try to drive this point home just by focusing on the love of God, that God is love, and the Bible tells us that God is love, and that perfect love casts out fear. And so we are objects of His love. He wants to give us love, and so let's not draw away from Him when we feel dirty, when we feel unworthy. Let's draw towards Him, because it is love that is going to purify us, that's going to cleanse us, that's going to make us whole and better people. It's always great to talk about the mercy and grace of God, and how that works hand in hand. The mercy of God receiving not receiving what we deserve, the grace of God, receiving what we don't deserve. I like to point out, even with the grace of God, Titus 2:11, that the grace of God teaches us to live to a higher standard, to say no to what is wrong, yes to what is right. And so there's an empowering there. We also understand that God is a relational God and how we view Him in the Trinity. So I would unpack that space quite effectively, so that people walk away with an understanding that God is in relationship within Himself and values relationship, and so wants to be in relationship with us. There's some awesome questions right at the end of that chapter that really encourage discussion and reflection. So I would focus or leave time to be able to have some focus on that area and encourage conversation. So leave time to be able to have some of those discussions based on those conversations at the back, and get some commitments from the guys. How have your perceptions changed? Have your perceptions changed, and what are you going to do about that?